The game is tailored by how you play. It is shaped by the choices we make. Hey, hey, Wolfpack, we're back with another surprise tier list. Once again, talking about The Walking Dead. This time, the Telltale Saga. Yep, I'm gonna be ranking all the Telltale Walking Dead villains. Because we had so much fun doing the show villains, this time we're doing the hit video game series. The good, the bad, and the David Garcia. They're all here. I'm here, Snowstorm the Cat 2000, glad you can make it. Making sure everything's working, haven't gotten too far yet. So, once again, we're talking about The Walking Dead. This time, one of my favorite video games, the Telltale Walking Dead series. Yes, we are talking about the episodic Walking Dead video games by Telltale. They're the studio that gave us Sam & Max, Back to the Future, Monkey Island, of course The Walking Dead being the biggest name, and recently, the Batman the Telltale series, which I absolutely love. That game is my favorite Telltale game so far, but The Walking Dead is still a classic, has a ton of great characters, and some really bad eggs. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about all of them. The big, the small, they're all here. Gonna be ranking them from top best to bottom worst. Alright, making sure everything's working. Looks like you guys can hear me. Alright, so we got every primary villain. Some small, minor bit characters might not be on here, but we got all the plot-relevant villains. I will be ranking them all from who's top best to bottom worst. And I do have unique slots for them, just like our last Walking Dead tier list. Up top, we have LO Governor. These ones are the S tier, the perfect 10s, the ones who match the legendary Philip Blake's awesome villainy. Really love these villains, they are great, they are perfect, they are fun antagonists, interesting characters, and everybody just plain loves them, including myself. These ones I consider LO Governor perfection. I didn't realize the St. John's were cannibals when I first played it because it just blew my mind. Yep, they're here. We got all three of them tied together. Underneath that, we have Ace Savior. These ones are the A tier. The good ones, the golden standard. Definitely great villains. I might have a criticism or two here and there. Possibly a lack of screen time will definitely affect many of these characters, but they're golden, they're good, they are worthy of being one of Negan's saviors. They're pretty cool villains. I like them. They're the good, not great. Underneath that, we have Bandit. These ones are fine. They're alright, they're okay, they're Silver Skull material, they are B-tier villains, they came, they did their job, could have used a few more boosts here and there, could have been a perfect villain, but overall, I thought they were fine, they did their job, they're an okay antagonist, would have loved to see more or give them much more screen time, but ended up a B-tier villain, they're a bandit. Then underneath that, we have Common Crook. These ones are basic, below average, not at all that entertaining, not the best of the best, but also not the worst. They're definitely a common villain. They filled their purpose, but didn't leave too much of a big impression, or I don't like them all that much. A C-tier character, a Common Crook. Underneath that, we have Walker Bait. These ones are Zombie Chow. They're lame. They're the weak ones. The Bronze Skull territory. They're the lame ducks. Came in, could have been an interesting character, but ended up very flat, one-dimensional, or didn't do all that much for me. They are basically Walker Bait. But at rock bottom, we have Arvo. Yeah, I guess who's coming down here. These ones are F tiers, the total losers, 0 out of 10s, worst characters of the game series, and we might be seeing quite a few of the later antagonists end up down here. But they are Arvo bad, they suck, I hate them. But yeah, got a lot of good villains. The Telltale games are honestly not that long. There's a grand total of 5 games, if you count the Michonne title, of course. There's technically 5 seasons, but only 4 if you follow the Clementine saga. Clementine is the main protagonist, at least she became that way. Basically, The Walking Dead, it's a zombie survival horror story. Characters are trying to survive. The evil zombies, the dead, have risen from the grave and are eating people, and society society has completely crumbled. But in a complete dark twist, the true villains are actually the humans. The humans have descended into madness, descended into evil, given into their worst habits, and it's more so about combating and surviving the living. Fear the living and the dead. That was like one of their taglines. Have a lot of villains, both human and of course zombies. Some of them became zombies, but as you can see, The Walking Dead was more famous for its well-rounded human antagonists. And some are great, some are not so great. We have every basically major villain who appears in this series. Sorry, you might see one or two minor characters missing on here, but basically had a ton of screen time, had a ton of focus, basically qualifies as a villain. I couldn't tell if the Michonne story is either canon to the show or if it's just me. Apparently the Michonne story has been retconned to being canon to the comics. It was supposed to tie into the TV show, but they had some copyright and lawsuit stuff. Basically, they had to tie it to Robert Kirkman's comic rather than the show, and Denai Guerrera ended up not voicing Michonne. For some reason, they got Samara Wiley, I believe is her name. Basically, somebody who has never played Michonne before. And yeah, they did clarify, it is now tied to the comic rather than the game because Michonne has daughters in the comic and game, whereas in the show she has a son. Judith is technically her daughter, but not her biological daughter. But yeah, Michonne is now tied to basically the comics. There was a Michonne video game. I played it and have some mixed feelings on it, but yeah, we'll get to her antagonist soon. So, got every major villain. Some have only been an antagonist for like one episode, basically arc villains, but a lot of major threats, a lot of interesting characters, some who are there all series, and some who are just a one-shot villain, a villain of the episode, if you will. And we're gonna be judging them all. I love most of the Walking Dead games. The Michonne miniseries and the New Frontier I consider the weakest entries. New Frontier had a ton of problems. It does have some highlights, some moments I really like, but overall I do think it was a very weak entry in this saga and definitely overshadowed by better games. And the Michonne miniseries had cool action, but it was a very lousy entry. I think the Michonne game might be the worst one in the saga. Yikes, gets copyright strikes again, and I thought the actress did a great job voicing her, but I think Michonne is fine with a son in the show. Yeah, she's fine in the show. In the video game, yeah, they were supposed to get Denai Guerrera, but a lot of issues and copyright over using her image and tying it to AMC Saga. AMC basically wanted all of the money that came from that game, and Telltale didn't want that because Telltale was the one making the game and they wanted the money, and yeah, it led to some issues, and eventually it just became tied to the comic. And unfortunately, the show altered a lot so it wouldn't have resemblance to the Michonne game. Like, Sadiq looks a lot different in the video game and the TV show. That was like one key example, and it's why Denai Guerrera did not come back to voice Michonne. But yeah, it's a lot of copyright BS, and unfortunately the game was not very good, but it's okay, Telltale, the show also got worse. Especially after Michonne left. But yeah, got all the villains here, the big, the lesser, and the David Garcia. And we're gonna be ranking them all up here on this here tier list. So, love the video games. It is a point-and-click game. I definitely recommend it. The first season is a masterpiece. Season 2 is pretty good. I would say it's playable. It definitely has its high marks, but a really dark and depressing nature all around. Some might be turned off by it, and it didn't help that Telltale quadrupled on the gross out moments of The Walking Dead in that title. Then came, I believe Michonne actually came next. Michonne was a pretty weak entry. I'd recommend playing it once, but it is not worth the full price, we'll put it that way. Then came the New Frontier. This one was better than Michonne. It did have a lot of highlights, a lot of fun moments, but also a lot of stupid moments, really rush pacing, and a lot of the more annoying characters, some of whom are on this tier list. And then last we got the final season, which was pretty good. I do like it. I think it's my second favorite of the Telltale Walking Dead games. They ended it on a pretty good note, had a lot of solid horror, solid character writing, and ended Clementine's saga very well. But yeah, got all the villains here, so let's get to ranking them. So first, we should start off with the primary villain of the Walking Dead universe, the Walkers. Yep, just like our last one, the Walkers going on to S tier. Hello, Governor. The Walkers, they're cool, they're creepy. Telltale took a lot of creative liberties with the zombie designs in this video game, and they do look pretty cool. They took the comics for inspiration rather than Greg Nicotero's makeup, and I will say they do look pretty cool. They still snarl, act feral like they do in the TV show and the comics, but they give them a lot more trippy designs. We see a lot of walkers who are a lot more different designed throughout this saga. Some have like weapons lodged into them, some look very skeletal, some look like they're still barely living. They all have the gray skin, all have the disgusting bite marks on them, and they went the extra mile to give zombies like these milky white eyes to make sure you know there's zombies in this world. And yeah, the walkers, they're pretty cool. Very deadly, very scary. Give them a lot of original death animations. And of course, a lot of fun combat. Killing zombies is definitely fun. And they still retain a lot of their horror in the game as they do in other media. Do people still talk about The Walking Dead? Apparently it's getting a reunion show, so I thought it'd be a good time to do these tier lists. I've played The New Frontier and I'm neutral, but I do like the character development for Javier. Yeah, Javier has grown on me too. I initially didn't like him, mostly because he just stole so much spotlight. I wanted to see more of Clementine, and Telltale gave me like false hope that we'd see an equal amount of screen time for Javier and Clementine, but it just became the Javier show. That was like my big problem with it, and it was more aggravating because in other Telltale games, they actually split the screen time equally when they had multiple characters. Like, look at Telltale's Tales from the Borderlands and Game of Thrones, and the characters all got a fair share of screen time. The New Frontier disappointed in this aspect. They did not want to give Clementine too much screen time. She only had flashbacks that were playable. Otherwise, it was mostly Javier's story. A reunion show? Yeah, that's what AMC is teasing, and there's a lot of online rumors. There's going to be like an anniversary show for The Walking Dead, and apparently a lot of characters, even some who are dead, are going to be in this. I heard Beth's actress is actually going to come back. I kind of hope so because her death scene was one of the dumbest in the TV series. But yeah, there's allegedly a reunion show coming out soon. I have not heard further rumors on that, otherwise I've just heard about the advertisements for the new shows. Apparently, Negan and Maggie's show is still going on, and yeah, by this point I've kind of lost interest like the rest of the world. But yeah, keep in mind, I never bothered with this franchise. I know that, Shadow, but yeah, this franchise is basically a long runner. It's gone on pretty long, I would say just as long as kind of the early Star Trek or Ninja Turtles. They have a lot of media and spin-off material. The main show was good up until we got to the Commonwealth arc. The video games are pretty fun. Most of them are free on Game Pass if you use Xbox. I think it's also free on the PlayStation because Telltale went bankrupt and all their games became public. Much as I find it disappointing, but depending when you play Season 2, I felt like the death of Kenny is really sad for me. Same with Lee. Yeah, it is. Lee Everett's death is one of the saddest moments of gaming. How interesting is fighting zombies? In this game, actually pretty cool. You have to use like a lot of point-and-click, quick-time events, and basically time your attacks, right? If you don't kill the zombies fast enough, then they can easily kill you. Speaking of which, yeah, the walkers, they're pretty cool. They kind of lost their menace in the weaker games. The Walking Dead Michonne game especially, you can easily like just push a button and that literally kills them. There's a much bigger struggle in the Clementine saga of things. Javier also kind of kills walkers much easily. The New Frontier were more so the big bads of that video game. The walkers became less threatening in games 3 and 4, but the final season kind of fixed this by making them threatening again because they travel in packs now. But yeah, the walkers, still cool in the game, have awesome designs, creepy scenes, and are a genuine menace in the Telltale saga. At least for most of the games, but I'll put them still on S tier. Yeah, the walkers, they're still cool. I mainly am talking about the franchise as a whole. Aren't there like 5 series in this franchise? Yeah, there is now. Recommend the primary show, The Walking Dead. It's just called The Walking Dead. That is the main show and the main comic. It was based off the comic. It follows the comic closely up until it didn't. But yeah, the main show is pretty good for mostly like 9 to 10 seasons. The last one was complete ass, but it has its slow and weak moments in a few too. Some people told me they gave up by the Savior War arc, but I thought it did have a lot more good than bad. But yeah, there's The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead. It was good for 2 seasons, then it fell off hard in season 3. There's The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. It's a spin-off with Rick and Michonne reuniting. I have not watched it because I lost interest in the saga. There's The Walking Dead, Dead City. It's the Maggie and Negan spin-off. There's The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon / The Book of Carol. It's Daryl on his adventures because Daryl Dixon was like the most popular character from the Prime show. And there's also Tales from The Walking Dead. Yeah, there's 6 now. It's a mini-series following these arc characters. Only one of these arcs was actually good, and it was like actually a prequel to Alpha's villain origin. But yeah, there's 6 shows. There's a ton of video games. The Telltale ones are the most successful, which is why we're talking about them. Yeah, Walking Dead Destiny's the current new game I've heard nothing but bad news about. And there was the one about the Dixon brothers. My brother Wolf wanted to check it out because Daryl and Merle were his favorite characters. Angry Joe reviewed it, and yeah, he was right, it was not really good. And there's also a ton of arcade shoot-em-ups. There's also the comic book, which also got its own spin-offs. We see like origin stories for Negan and the Governor and Alpha. Basically, Robert Kirkman really got into the villains. You should do a tier list on Justice League Unlimited, mainly because I'm watching that show for research purposes. I might. I love Justice League Unlimited. I mainly am okay, read that. Okay, so anyways, the Walkers, they're S tier. Alright, so I guess we should do our first technical villain of the saga, the St. John family. Yep, all 3 are here. Sorry, Danny is cut off, but Andy and Brenda St. John are there. These are the St. Johns, who at first appear to be helpful new allies who welcome Lee Everett, Clementine, and friends to the farm. They have an electrified fence which helps keep zombies and evil humans out. They welcome the gang in exchange they do some chores and favors. They help each other become best friends. And then we get to this dark turn. Episode 2 of Season 1 is easily my favorite because it feels like a full-blown horror movie. We start to see some red flags and warning signs foreshadowing that there's more to the St. John's than meets the eye. And we get to see the big twist when we find Mark, who's been cut in half, and you're eating him. The St. John's are cannibals. They lure in people and hunt down possible survivors, trap them in those bear traps in the woods. We got like the intro where somebody is caught in a bear trap, and it turns out Danny was scattering these around to trap animals, and some of these animals include human survivors. They are cannibals. They take people, chop them up and eat them, and they were trying to recruit Lee's gang into being their new friends, feeding them people, but when the truth is out, they slowly reveal that, yep, they are villains. They take the gang hostage, leading to an intense fight of trying to escape and kill the St. John family. And, yep, they're going on to S tier. I really love these villains. Danny is the one who pretty much embraced his villainy. You start to notice there's something off about him. He is kind of showing some warning signals, red flags that he's a psycho killer. Andy and Brenda at least try to pretend they're good people. They actually seem like very wholesome and welcoming up until it's revealed what you're eating. It's revealed who they really are and slowly descend into kind of the Sawyer family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There are cannibals in The Walking Dead. They realize that food has become scarce and have resorted to eating people, leading to an intense showdown, fighting them all, picking them off one by one. The barn is this cool and elaborate horror movie set. It starts out very sunny and friendly when they try to act warm and heartfelt. Then it slowly turns into a horror picture. You start to see a storm is coming, adding some unease. Then it's a full-blown stormy, rainy night when you're having the final fight with them. And yeah, these villains, really cool, really like them. They actually feel kind of tragic at first because the St. Johns were once good people. They are the sign that, yeah, the big villains of The Walking Dead are actually humans. Humans who have shedded their humanity, humans who have lost their minds, humans have given into basically the worst of society. They have devolved into basically eating people. You fight them. It's kind of tragic for Andy and Brenda because they didn't want to kill Lee and friends. But of course you kill them and they get like a bunch of satisfying death scenes. Like Danny is ironically taken out in one of his own bear traps. You have the option to finish him or leave him to basically die there because the bear trap is irreversible. I usually pick to spare him because the barn gets overrun by zombies. You take out their electric fence. Brenda is killed by Mark in an ironic comeuppance. Yes, it is kind of funny that Mark still has your back even as a zombie. And Andy has a big epic fistfight with Lee Everett where you can kick him into the electrified grid or leave him to his fate. I do believe they all die, basically. Yeah, the farm is completely overrun. Danny's not getting out of there, and Andy is ironically killed either by being kicked into his own electric fence, or you leave him alive and he gets killed by his zombie mom, because mom does become a zombie. And yeah, really like them. Interesting characters, very fascinating, and there is a slow look into their madness. You actually see they used to be good people, then have pretty much fallen on rock bottom, embraced their villainy, leading to a really epic showdown. I like them. They're fun, they're creepy, they're cool, actually very layered as characters, honestly, and made episode 2 very enjoyable. I find them to be like the Sawyers from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre after them, but I'll admit the way they defend themselves is really clever. Yeah, it is. What happens if a cannibal eats a zombie? They kind of poked fun of that in the TV series. If you eat a zombie, I guess you become one, technically. Yeah, the walkers can infect people by biting them and scratching them. If they even get their blood or meat on you, then yeah, you can become infected. We see the saviors like do this when they bathe their weapons in zombie blood. Yeah, if you get zombie inside of your stomach, yeah, you still become a zombie like them. Okay, but yeah, the cannibals, pretty cool villains. Gonna put them onto S tier. Alright, so I guess next is technically Lily, but we're gonna save her for the final season. Lily turns to the dark side halfway through, and then she kind of awkwardly disappears. Next is the bandits from the Save-A-Lots. The bandits are introduced in episode 2, and they're used as a fake-out villain, but disappear halfway through when the St. Johns take over, only to pop up again in episode 3. The St. Johns are the Save-A-Lot bandits are kind of filler villains, and I'm gonna put them onto Bandit. Yeah, shocker. These villains are alright. We don't get too much backstory on them. They show up in episode 2. You see the bandits are fighting each other, are basically killing and robbing, looting other survivors for food. They are dangerously close to Lee and friends. It's more reason why Lee trusts the St. Johns more, because they say, oh, we gotta stick together. The bandits apparently had a deal with the St. Johns that they would protect them in exchange for food, but then they found out what that food was and tried to kill them, only to end up wounding Mark. They kind of disappear, only to return in episode 3. They are the starter villain for the mid-season finale. In episode 3, someone is making a deal with the bandits to keep them off their back, and the bandits show up when Lee Everett finds their package. You find out there's a traitor in your group. You don't get to see who it is yet, but the bandits show up, leading to a shootout, and I believe I speak for everyone when I say screw this portion of the game. It switches out to a sniper level, and it is kind of hard to get used to these controls. You have to learn fast, but you have a shootout with the bandits here, and basically the bandits all die. You have a big epic shootout. Zombies are coming in because they're attracted to the war noises. You snipe them out. This guy, I believe, like, is the first casualty, and you have this big epic fight. They're using like bow and arrows and guns and what little ammo they have left, leading to a big epic fight, and it leads to the downfall of the group's original safe zone. They were like holding up in a hotel since episode 1, and it's completely destroyed, kind of like the governor arc in the end. The hotel's set on fire, everything's destroyed, it's invaded by walkers, and the bandits end up being killed, leading to a lot of turmoil in your group for the later half of the episode. But yeah, these enemies are kind of basic. They did tease a little backstory in season 2, where you actually meet one of the crazy bandits. She defected from the main group because apparently the bandits betrayed her and might have raped and killed her daughter. We don't get the full context, but some crazy woman lost her daughter to these bandits, and it's implied they used to be her best friends until they descended into evil, and you encounter her. They trick you into believing that this crazy woman might be Clementine's mother, but no, it's not. It's a crazy woman who wants to abduct Clementine, and you snipe her out. She's used as a decoy antagonist until we build up the real bandits. That's the only backstory we get towards these guys, that once society fell, they basically embraced being looters and evil bastards. But it kind of made them basic. I'm going to put them on a B tier. They could have done something with the whole idea of get food however you can, but goddamn, this game knew how to make you feel like you wanted to protect Clementine at all costs. Yeah. Hey, Cat. Hey, John Smith. I'm gonna leave. I might live stream this, and I don't want to be spoiled. Okay, Shadow, take care. And we pretty much found out, yep, Ben was the traitor. He was the one who gave the bandits the food Lee and Kenny gathered from the stranger's car. Yep. Stream on a Tuesday? Yeah, I figured I'd surprise you guys with a Telltale Tuesday. But yeah, in short, the bandits are kind of basic villains. They are pretty much dealt with very quickly, and you find out there's a much bigger villain on the horizon. But that villain will do next. Yeah, it looks like I got rid of most of the Season 1 villains, except for our final one, the Stranger. And yep, you bet he's going into Hello, Governor, even above the St. John's. This is the Stranger. The Stranger is a villain who is actually there from the very beginning of the game. Technically episode 2, but he does kind of cameo in the back of the first episode if you pay close attention. The Stranger is the endgame villain of Season 1 of The Walking Dead's Telltale story. He is Lee Everett's arch-nemesis. So, earlier, Clementine has a radio she's been using. She used to call her parents up on it, but the radio has been staticky for the first portion of the game. Until you find out at the end of episode 3, Clementine has been talking to someone on the radio. This is the Stranger. There is a lot of big build up towards this guy. We never see what he looks like. We never learn what his deal is, and he has a creepy obsession with Clementine. He appears sporadically come episode 4. You catch like glimpses of him hiding in the shadows, stalking and following Lee and Clementine around, brief appearances and jump scares of him, and he seemingly has his eye on you. He warns you that walkers are around the corner and to get off the street. It's unclear if he's an ally or an enemy. Up until the end of episode 4, where the Stranger wants to take Clementine away from Lee. Lee is the main character. He has protected Clementine for the entire first season, up until she's taken hostage, leading to a big epic finale where Lee has to fight the Stranger and save the little girl. Clementine is taken hostage, and we get our big reveal that the Stranger is just this ordinary guy. He wants revenge on Lee because it turns out earlier in the game, you looted a car for supplies, and that car belonged to him. The Stranger once had a family who he loved. The family got into some trouble in the forest. He lost his son. They went out looking for him, but he stupidly left his car completely unprotected and with everything on. Lee's group found this car and stole all the supplies from it. When he came back, he lost everything. His family died. He lost his wife, his 2 kids, lost his supplies, and was left with nothing. And he eventually found out that Lee Everett and his group took it, where he went insane and decided to replace his dead family with Clementine. This is the big overarching mystery. The Stranger is a dark reflection of Lee Everett. He was once a good, caring father. He used to coach Little League football. He was once a family man, but the apocalypse destroyed his life, kind of like how Lee Everett destroyed his at the beginning of the story. The Stranger wants Clementine to be his new kid and tries to get Lee out of the picture. You have this big confrontation revealing that he basically projects a lot of his problems onto Lee, and he wants to take Clementine, declaring that he's a better guardian and father for her, where he calls you out on every choice he made all throughout the game. The Stranger is definitely one of the biggest highlights because who is he? He's not some villain, a cannibal, some zombie monster. He's a normal guy who was completely broken by all the darkness that happened. The horror story completely took a toll on him, and he's lost his mind. He is also clearly not a fit guardian for Clementine because he keeps his dead zombie wife's head in a bowling ball and talks to it. Yeah, this guy's kind of crazy. He keeps, like, his wife's severed head, still living as a zombie, mind you, and talks to it in, like, his bowling ball bag, saying, "Oh, don't worry, sweetie, we're gonna be a family again." And it leads to, basically, the end of Clementine's character arc. Lee teaches Clementine how to take care of herself all throughout the game, and Clementine helps Lee take out the Stranger. She bludgeons him in the back, you and he fight, have a big epic fist fight, and potentially Clementine is the one who shoots him. Either you choke him out, or if you're not fast enough, Clementine is the one who shoots him, giving him an ironic death. And yeah, the Stranger, still a pretty cool character. All these years later, I do think this guy is a very fascinating antagonist. The big build-up to him is very creepy, and we do see he is a very unstable dude. He was actually following the group, he was sabotaging you, he was trying to basically trick a little girl into coming with him, and we find out that he's actually this evil version of Lee. Wait, where is Ben? Are you talking about Ben? This is all the villains. I know technically he's screwed up, but he's not a villain. Are you gonna do a tier list of Hell of a Boss in the future? Thinking about it. Yeah, this is the only Walking Dead I know. Watching streamers play, these never got into the show. It's a darn shame, because I remember everybody was hoping Clementine would appear in the TV series. Well, depending what you do with the St. John brothers when they take the food or not, you'll learn much about him. Ben Paul is not on here. We're ranking the villains. I know he was technically a screw-up, but he meant well. Like Arcana and his girlfriend in Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City. Haha, yeah, definitely like that, except his wife is a full-blown undead monster. But yeah, all these years later, the Stranger is actually a pretty fascinating antagonist. He's honestly sympathetic from a certain point of view, very well-rounded as a character. He's always there in the background watching you, adding a scare factor to him. Very creepy that he's eyeing Clementine, and honestly, in a twisted way, he wants to become her Lee Everett. He wants to have a family to call his own, and you find out, if you converse with him, Lee wanted to start a family too. His wife didn't, and eventually the wife cheated on Lee, which is why he killed her. And Lee and the Stranger realize they're not so different, but of course that doesn't stop the fact that he's a psychotic villain that you have to kill. But yeah, I do like this character. Pretty much the embodiment of an evil counterpart to Lee. I'm gonna put him onto S tier. Alright, now we made it to Season 2. And I guess we do have to start with the big guy. Oh wait, we do have some 400 Days characters. Never mind, got a few filler characters. Alright, next we'll do Roman. Remember Roman? He's technically the antagonist of two of the 400 Days stories. The Walking Dead Season 1 has a bonus DLC called The 400 Days. We follow basically a mini-series of 5 characters in the first 400 days of the zombie apocalypse. Get to learn about a bunch of new characters, set up a bunch of interesting side stories, and tease that these characters are going to be important next season. Spoiler alert, they are not. 400 Days is honestly kind of disappointing in hindsight because they only get cameos in Season 2, but whatever. But one of the villains is Roman. Roman is technically the antagonist of both Bonnie and Shell stories, yet he's a threat to both the female characters. Roman is at first this stern, hardened ex-military leader who is leading a group of survivors. They are friends of Vernon. Yeah, I forgot Vernon, he's on here too. He takes over after Vernon dies, and seems to be a good leader at first, and then we get to see the darker side of him. First of all, in Bonnie's story, Dee ends up stealing supplies from Roman's group where Roman is going after you. It's kind of kept vague if it's him, but we find out, yeah, it is Roman, Stephanie, Boyd, and Shell. They're following basically people who stole from them into a cornfield, and you do hear Roman is in there. Roman is chasing Bonnie down, but ultimately Bonnie has a twist villain that is Dee. Roman is also the villain of Shell's story. He actually gets a character in this segment where we see he's actually best friends with Shell, trying to keep the group together, but then a bandit tried to rob them, they capture him, he doesn't speak English, and they don't know if he's good or bad. Roman offers to execute him because this guy's a threat to the group, leading to basically a very harsh morality choice. Do you kill this guy or let him go free? This guy might come back with an army, might attack you because he knows where your base is, or is he completely innocent and spare him? You make the choice, however, this is not the last time. Something like this happens again after a time skip. There is fallout from whatever choice you made, and Roman catches one of his own group trying to go AWOL. A survivor, I believe, named Stephanie, tries to steal supplies and wanted to make a break for it, but Roman ended up capturing her, where you have to make the choice of killing or sparing this woman again. And Roman basically tries to goad you into killing your prisoners, showing that he is going down a dark path. Roman, I'm gonna put on to Common Crook. I really wanted to like this character, and they also tease that he was going to be back next season. Spoilers, he shows up in season 2 as a corpse. Yeah, Roman apparently died off screen in a time skip. Very lame, and why he's going on to C tier. Bonnie kinda was. Yeah, Bonnie kinda was the villain too. I haven't played the 400 Days mini chapters because I knew it's gonna be disappointing, no offense. And I played them for achievement's sake, and honestly, Wyatt and Russell's stories are really fun. Shell has the most boring story. Bonnie actually does have a pretty interesting plot. I do love hiding out in the cornfield. That is a fun gameplay segment. Roman was set up like he was gonna be a big villain, but honestly, he ends up losing in both his scenarios. First, Bonnie gets away completely. Dee does end up dying, but yeah, Roman fails to capture Bonnie in that segment. Then he pretty much loses control of Shell. Shell ends up leaving, and Roman shows up with a gang of bikers, basically as a corpse. Apparently, Carver killed these banditos off screen, and Roman shows up, revealing that, yep, he died. Kind of lame, honestly. They set him up like he was going to be this big antagonist, and they even got Ghostface Roger L. Jackson to voice him, only to do nothing with him. Wanted to like him, but we'll put him on to C tier. Yeah, when he did his big speech at the end of episode 4, I thought he was going to be someone from Lee's past or something, but he worked for the story. He did. Yeah, he did. Alright, so Roman, going on to C tier. While we're on 400 Days, I guess we'll also do Dee. Yep, this is Dee, technically a villain of Bonnie's segment. Bonnie is easily the worst 400 Days character. I do not like Shell's segment because hers is mostly boring, but Bonnie actually started out as an interesting character, but she ended up becoming one of the worst, most hate-worthy, and Bonnie's not even on this tier list because even some players are debating if she counted as a villainess. But you know who was the villain of her story? Dee. So, Bonnie is a young woman, a recovering drug addict who has nobody else to turn to. She is completely alone in the apocalypse, but she's picked up by this nice old couple, Dee and her husband, Leland. It's heavily implied that Leland has feelings for Bonnie, and depending on your choices and interactions with him, may be cheating on his wife. However, you kind of give him reason to, because Dee is a complete bitch. Dee comes back, it's a surprise twist. They actually give you the option to flirt back with Leland, hint that he's your romantic partner. Only no, we meet his wife Dee, and Dee kind of proves that she's no better than her group members. Dee stole from Roman's group and basically lies to Leland and Bonnie about it, that she's carrying stuff that was stolen, and people are after her. People are after her and gunning for her, and Roman's group ambushes them, where Dee takes advantage of the chaos and dips out on Bonnie. They leave Bonnie behind. Bonnie gets shoulder wounded, she's shot, and basically she drags her husband away, where they run into the cornfield, leading to a stealth battle where you have to get out of the cornfield, dodge Roman's group who are hunting you down, and Dee tries to kill Bonnie. Bonnie is like hiding behind a tractor, wounded, and Dee, rather stupidly, is walking around in the dark waving a flashlight and sneaking up on Bonnie, where you accidentally kill her. Yeah, Bonnie ends up killing her, and depending on how you view her, treats her like she was an evil bitch, or this was all an accident and Bonnie tries to make amends with her. But Dee honestly kind of ends up dying of her own stupidity. I might have to put her onto C tier too. Common crook. Yeah, could have been a interesting villain, but they abruptly kill her off, and ultimately this kind of goes nowhere. It foreshadows that Bonnie is honestly kind of a villain herself, because Bonnie ends up killing Dee. But yeah, Dee ends up dying, mostly because she was an idiot. Yeah, that's the end of her story, and Leland and Bonnie run away, and Leland eventually dies off screen at some point, leading to Bonnie's villain arc, basically. Since the crooks were killed off screen, I'm gonna give them dull machete. Yeah. Bonnie was honestly kind of a bitch. I felt for her at first in 400 Days and the start of season 2. We see Bonnie return there, and Bonnie slowly becomes kind of a villain herself. Weirdly, she's not on this tier list. I'm not sure if that was a choice by the creator. I did not make this. I added a few characters, but Bonnie is kind of up there. If she was a villain, she'd easily be on Arvo, but yeah. Dee, also kind of a lame villain. Interesting setup, but yeah, she ends up dying in her debut, putting her on C tier. But alright, last, there is one good villain on 400 Days, and that is Nate. Oh yeah, Nate. Nate is going on to Ace Savior. I thought this guy was kind of hilarious. Nate is a prototype Negan, I would say. He's a much funnier, darkly comical villain. Nate is the villain of the 400 Days characters, Wyatt and Russell. Technically, Russell too, but he's also kind of an aloof ally. Nate is basically this lone survivor who's prowling around on the highway. Apparently, one of his friends ends up killed by Wyatt and Eddie. I do like Wyatt and Eddie's segment in 400 Days. These two goofball stoner guys are trying to run away. Allegedly, Eddie might have shot and killed this guy's friend, and Nate is hunting them down for revenge. He's kind of this shadowy antagonist. We never get a full picture of him. He's always covered in shadow or driving around in his truck all ominously, kind of like the trucker from Duel. Wyatt and Eddie accidentally run over some guy and try to stop to help him, only for Nate to find them in the forest, where it leads to a big fight scene where Nate tries to take whoever's in the car out, and the driver ends up getting away, causing Wyatt and Eddie to separate. Nate then officially makes his full appearance in Russell's story. Russell is hitchhiking across the road trying to get to his grandma's house to save her from the zombie apocalypse, only to bump into Nate. And Nate introduces himself as kind of this rude, crude, abrasive jerk-ass. He's kind of mean, but also has a sense of humor. He offers Russell a lift and forms kind of an odd friendship with him. It's very difficult to grasp that this guy is genuinely a jerk with a heart of gold or just a plain jerk. He has a lot of funny interactions with Russell, talking about him, making funny sexist jokes, asking, oh, how hot was that walker when she was alive, what we give her out of 10, and yeah, I do kind of like him because he's so insane. This guy is Exactly like what I said, a prototype Negan has a very dark sense of humor, a lot of charisma, kind of a show-off, loves a good fight, but he does have some noble traits. He and Russell get into a shootout with somebody at a gas station. They go to a gas station slash Denny's to fuel up, only to get shot at by the sniper trying to take them out, forcing Nate and Russell to trust each other and work together. It's pretty much the best action scene in the 400 days. You're trying to fight, shoot, he covers you, he jokes around, and eventually you find out the snipers are this old couple. The wife was wounded and he claims Nate attacked them, but it's kept very vague and unclear who's telling the truth here. And basically, it's a big test of character. Do you trust Nate or not? Nate kills the old couple, and it either leads to Nate and Russell becoming friends or completely severing ties. And Nate is, once again, kind of a warning for Russell to distrust people. Though, I did find him very entertaining, very interesting. I like to joke with my friends that this guy might have been Negan prior to becoming the savior leader. Sorry, reading the comments. But yeah, I think this guy is honestly pretty entertaining. I'm going to put him onto Ace Savior. He was pretty cool. Disappointed he never came back, but as far as dark, funny antagonists go, he is definitely high up for me. Easily the best 400 Days villain. But we do have one final Season 1 villain, and that is Vernon. Yeah, remember this guy? This is Vernon, who doesn't start out as a villain at first, but at the end of his episode reveals that he was a twist villain. Vernon is actually the leader of a group of cancer patients who are surviving the apocalypse. They were kicked out of Crawford, this social Darwinist community that executed the weak, and Vernon stepped up as their leader. He's this nice old doctor. He's a medic who actually helps treat a few of your friends, works together, you steal supplies from Crawford. And then kind of near the end of episode 4, Vernon turns traitor. Vernon tries to convince Lee to give him Clementine. You have a big fight about it, he leaves, and then it turns out Vernon and the group stole your boat. Lee and the group were trying to get a boat to head to the coast and get away from the mainland and zombies, but Vernon stole your idea. He steals the boat. They trap whoever's guarding it in the shed. Basically, they took it, and we find out Vernon kind of died off screen. It's honestly a kind of surprising twist that this guy turned out to be a villain. Unfortunately, he died off screen, which did cost him points, so I might have to put him onto Bandit. Yeah, I did like the twist that Vernon technically was an antagonist, though you kind of understand and sympathize with him. Vernon is an example of, oh, everyone has their own story. He was trying to save and protect his own group. He turns against you, but most of his villainy kind of happened off screen. He is basically a nice guy for most of his debut episode, until episode 5 reveals that he fled town because he saw the walkers follow the train all the way to Savannah. Sorry, I couldn't talk. Yeah, at first I thought he was a kind-hearted guy who helped the cancer patients, and Vernon being the twist villain is quite the surprise. Yeah, that's why I kind of win some points. It is a pretty nice surprise that this guy turned out to be a dick, but you kind of understand where he's coming from, and Vernon actually leaves an apology note saying that he had to save it for his own group. Unfortunately, Vernon died off screen. 400 Days reveals that Vernon's boat plan did not go well, and apparently he died with the ship. Yeah, honestly kind of a cop-out, since I thought it would have been interesting to see where this guy's story went, but no. Vernon ended up dying, and the cancer group went to Roman, who was a much worse leader. But yeah, Vernon, I'll put on to B tier. Nice surprise twist that he was a villain, but ended up kind of a one-and-done character. He's definitely a bandit. Makes you think of Doug's ramble in the Mary Poppins Returns episode about how a character can be an antagonist without being a straight-up villain. Yeah, I remember. Nostalgia critic. Alright, now we made it to Season 2. Let's talk about the big guy. One of the fan-favorite villains from this game series, Carver, played by Mr. Blonde himself, Michael Madsen. And yep, Carver also going up pretty high. I'm gonna put him on to Hello, Governor. Yeah, Carver is a pretty good, ruthless, creepy governor-style antagonist. This is Carver, technically the main villain of Season 2, up until the halfway point. Carver is set up and built up to big time. He's teased at all throughout episode 1 by the Log Cabin group, a group who are running away from the Save-A-Lots, end up meeting Clementine, and it turns out they're being hunted by this guy, William Carver. Carver is a ruthless, sociopathic, might makes right type of madman. He is basically a knockoff governor of the Walking Dead video game, this evil leader of a cult-like group of villains. Carver presents himself as a nice guy, very polite and well-mannered at first, but as we soon figure out, it's all an act. He doesn't show up until episode 2 of season 2. He's hinted at all throughout episode 1. You see he basically murdered Roman's bandits group, setting him up as a very big deal in this video game. The group is very scared and fearful from him. He is the dreaded. Then comes episode 2. Episode 2, when the group is out trying to search for Pete or Nick who have gone MIA, Carver shows up and Clementine basically distracts him because he doesn't know who Clementine is. He searches around the house, the cabin, looking for them. Sarah is hyperventilating, very scared of him, and warning Clementine that he's a very dangerous bad man. Carver initially doesn't wear his villainy on his sleeve at first, pretends he's polite, and tries to warn Clementine not to trust the Log Cabin group. They are possibly morally ambiguous and will betray her. He's kind of right and does hint at a few of them being bad eggs, but ultimately Carver seemingly leaves in peace. But we find out he did not let go of following them. The group make it back to the house. Oh, there's Wolf making a cameo on Steam. Alright. The group makes it back to the house, find out Carver was there. They talk to Clementine, ask him, somebody showed up, and yep, it was Carver. They immediately go on the run, trying to get as far away from this guy as possible. You get a lot of scary clues and foreshadowing hints that somebody is following them. You see like flashlights out in the distance of the forest. You get hints that somebody was here. Then Carver shows up in the climax of episode 2, ambushing Kenny's stronghold. He shows up at like the ski lodge, leading to a big all-out brawl where Carver shows how evil he is by starting to execute hostages. Tragically, Walter dies and his death is unavoidable. Very sad, but yeah, Walter gets capped. He possibly kills Alvin if you aren't fast enough, but then Kenny eventually surrenders, leading to Carver taking them back to his stronghold, where he's holed up in this fortress Walmart store. And Carver pretty much reveals the true reason why he's the villain of this game. Carver is basically the Governor 2.0. He's a bad boss, very threatening, kills people, abuses people, like, pretty much costs Kenny his eye. Kenny is beaten so badly that he loses his own eye. Alvin, if he's alive, ends up tortured and beaten, and you find out he was stalking the group because he wants Rebecca. Rebecca was a woman he heavily implied to have raped and believes that Rebecca is carrying his child. Rebecca is the pregnant woman in your group and she wanted to desperately get away from Carver and she's about to have the baby soon. Carver believes the baby is his and in his words is taking back his property. Leading to him taking them back, Carver very much reveals that he is a bad leader. He starts executing people, pushes Reggie off the roof, abuses people, has the group basically cowed into submission, and tries to mold Clementine into his protege. We see he tries to play nice with Clementine at first, tries to get her to think like him. But it does lead to the satisfying moment where, of course, the group revolts. They stage a prison break. Everyone gets a job to do. There's a lot of close calls. Carver almost catches them, but you eventually ambush him. Kenny kneecaps him, leading to one of the best moments, Carver's death, where Kenny bludgeons him to death with the crowbar. But to his credit, Carver does not cower or beg for mercy. He is basically still putting up his tough guy front, acting like, oh, you guys think you're safe out there, you are better off with me, you're all just gonna die just like me, lambs to the slaughter, and you can choose whether to watch Kenny end him or not, but yeah, Carver basically finally gets his comeuppance here, but his terror is definitely impacted upon the rest of the group because Kenny starts acting like Carver in the second half of season 2. I will admit I was kind of surprised how early Carver's death came in Season 2, especially because he was a pretty cool villain. They give him a lot of depth, a lot of interesting moments, a lot of scary moments, and not to mention hired Michael Madsen as your main villain. Of course, Michael Madsen does a terrific job being the bad guy. I mean, this was a guy who sawed off a cop's ear while dancing. But yeah, Carver honestly is a pretty badass villain. I remember I hated Carver for how he beat up Kenny's eye, much as I feel sorry for him when he lost his folks, but he's pretty much like the governor, but removed all the qualities he had. Yeah, all the redeemable qualities. Carver is basically a much more unsympathetic version of the governor. Basically, he's a big psychotic man-child, demanding everyone bend the knee to him, abusing people who don't fall in line, throwing basically temper tantrums while killing people, and he was even gonna gun down his pregnant lover just out of pure spite when they tried to leave him still. Very glad he died, but Carver is actually a pretty great antagonist. I do like him. Again, kind of feels like the governor, but hey, he's on LO Governor for a reason. Michael Madsen's performance definitely shines through this character. Carver is one of the best villains of the game series, so I'm gonna put him onto S tier. Yeah, so technically Kenny and Jane kind of become the villains, but they're not on this tier list. I presume because of the morally gray storytelling, Kenny and Jane kind of became anti-heroes as the game went along, so I guess they don't count as full-on villains, especially because the player has to choose whose side they're on. But next, I guess we'll also bump off Troy, and Troy is our first Arvo character. Yeah, screw this guy. Troy is honestly just like Carver. He's what I would say an evil Daryl Dixon. Troy has a crossbow, kind of looks like Norman Reedus, honestly. Yeah, they based a lot of characters off of characters from the comics and the TV show. Carver is based off the governor, and Troy is basically evil Daryl Dixon. He's a southern hick who likes abusing children and is basically a big sadistic bully who likes serving Carver. He's Carver's right-hand man and a much more annoying and irritating bitch version of him. Yeah, Troy pretty much has a huge hate boner for children, which is why he targets Clementine frequently. He's there in episode 2, basically serving Carver loyally. He partakes in the shootout. Episode 3 gives him more character, where he's a one-note a-hole. He's a dick, he's always angry, always bitter, always yelling. They tease that he might have a crush on Jane. Apparently he and Jane used to have sex together, possibly was her boyfriend before all this went down. Troy basically tries to punish and abuse Clementine every time they try to escape, but he does get a very hilarious and dark death where Jane seduces him and pretends that, oh, Troy, I still love you, we can escape this together. Troy completely falls for it, then she shoots his dick off. Yeah, pretty satisfying death scene. Troy gets his nut shot off and he's bleeding out, and of course, zombies hear him and come to munch on him. Very pissed off this didn't happen on screen, but yeah, he was so pathetic. Troy is basically this big man-child bully who hates children. Pretty much hates everyone, but Clementine especially. Yeah, he sucks. Going on to Arbor, he is one of the worst villains. Have you ever read all watch behind the scenes issues of The Walking Dead Telltale? No, I have not. Was more on Kenny's side, really. I agree. Jane was a lot more unsympathetic. I really hated Troy with a passion, and the part where Jane shot Troy in the crotch was really funny. Jane pulled a Butters, lol. Yeah, but he deserved it. Yeah, Troy sucks. They tried to make an evil Daryl Dixon out of him, which could have been cool if he wasn't just a one-note dickhead. Yeah, he's gone on to Arvo. Speaking of which, I think we have to get to our last Season 2 antagonist, Arvo. Who is going on to Arvo? This is Russian Peter Parker, so Arvo kinda shows up out of nowhere. Once you escape the evil Walmart, make it out on your own, you take shelter at a Civil War museum, and kind of randomly, this Russian kid shows up out of nowhere. He's stashing supplies in the museum. Jane and Clementine ambush him, and you have the option of either taking his supplies or giving them back. Arvo claims to have a very sick sister. It's unclear if this is true or not. Arvo could be lying, but basically gives you a morality choice, only for Arvo to be revealed to be a villain. Arvo shows up at the end of episode 4 when you're trying to leave the museum area because it's now too cold to use as shelter. Arvo shows up and he's a part of a, I kid you not, gang of Russian bandits. Yeah, out of nowhere, he has this Russian mafia gang show up, and he reveals that he's actually a part of their group. There's like this big buff guy, there's this crazy psycho who's always yelling in Russian, his sister Natasha shows up, and yeah, Arvo basically tries to rob the group. He's a bit hesitant when he finds out you have a baby. Alvin Jr.'s just been born, but a shootout commences where basically the Russians all die. I kind of presume that's why they're not on this tier list. The Russians ended up very disappointing as villains. Arvo is on here because he's the only one who lives. Yeah, they set up this big epic shootout where his gang shows up and all of them die. At the start of episode 5, you take them all out. They only wound Luke, and that's about it. None of your people die. Rebecca dies, but it's because she died from the cold and the childbirth bleeding. Arvo loses everyone here, including his sister. Then he has a hate boner for Clementine because he shot and killed Natasha. Arvo's basically taken hostage, and basically Kenny's abused prisoner all throughout episode 5. Kenny beats him, takes all his anger out on him, and kind of starts Arvo's villain origin, and he's basically crying in the background, projecting a lot of his hatred onto Clementine, basically trying to lead the group away. He leads them back to his base, tries to escape them. Kenny catches and beats him. You hold him captive, but kind of out of nowhere, Mike and Bonnie, if she's alive, decide to side with him, and Arvo convinces them to run away with him. They steal supplies to get away from Kenny because they think Kenny is the greater evil here. I'd like to point out that Arvo was about to rob and possibly kill you guys, but whatever, because he's just a kid, they show sympathy for him. But what guarantees Arvo place on F tier is he shoots Clementine. Clementine tries to talk Mike and or Bonnie down, only for Arvo to snipe her out of pure spite. Arvo shoots Clementine and he kind of gets away with it. We never see him ever again. We have not seen Arvo since his last scene, and Arvo's gone down as one of the worst villains of the saga because he shot and wounded a little girl. Yeah, Arvo sucks. I hate him. All these years later, I hate him, and just to piss you off even more, Telltale left his story incomplete. We never find out what happened to Mike and Arvo. Bonnie can potentially die, but yeah, I usually let Bonnie die because she sucks, but yeah, basically these three get away and we never see them ever again. Arvo is a weak antagonist and only there just to make Clementine's life hell. Yeah, screw him. He's more hate-worthy than Troy. A Russian named Natasha. Oh, so clever. Very generic name. Both Season 2 and Season 3 had so many rewrites and behind-the-scenes issues. They're both different games than when they initially started. Yeah, I heard that about the New Frontier. Much as I feel sorry for him when his home, Mother Russia, was dealing with an apocalypse, we still never know what happened to him after Kenny treated him badly. Yeah, Arvo kind of disappears, and that honestly kind of makes him worse. Even if you want to defend that he's sympathetic, they never follow up on his story. They kind of leave us hanging on where he is, or if he felt remorse for shooting Clementine. Depending on how you treated him, he can either be unsympathetic towards Clem or actually have a, my god, what have I done moment, but they never follow up on this, and that's why Arvo is the worst character. He's unsympathetic, he shot a little girl, and his story was left incomplete. Yeah, screw him, he should have also had a Troy death. But yeah, we did it. We finished Season 2. Now, on to, I believe, Michonne came next. Yeah, sorry guys, I know you want the New Frontier, but next we'll do Michonne, and don't worry, this won't take long. Sorry, drinking my 500 waters to stay hydrated. Alright, next we'll bump off Norma, who is going on to Walker Bait. Yeah, got our first one on week. Now we're talking about The Walking Dead Michonne. This was a 3-episode miniseries, and if you never heard of this game, don't worry, it was like painfully short and very rushed. The Michonne series was supposed to be a bonus episode for season 2, but they wanted more money, so they reworked it into its own game, and honestly, it should have just been a bonus episode for season 2 because it is only like 3 hours long. Michonne only has 3 episodes, and each one is an hour. The main arc villain is Norma. Norma is the head of a water world town. They basically live in this pier, like in the lake. They're like centered in like a river, and they're protected by the water. They live in like this water world style city. Michonne is accidentally roped into an adventure because Norma's town was robbed by this kid thief named Sam. Sam is also a very terrible character, and no, she is not on the villain tier list even though she should be. Sam apparently frequently robs Nora's village, and Norma decides to capture her and is very pissed. She gave Sam a second chance, and Sam completely screwed up because she got greedy, leading to Michonne accidentally getting roped into her mistakes. And Norma introduces herself where she is the quote-unquote benevolent, reasonable leader of this group of basically bandits out in sea. She interrogates Michonne, very clear that Norma does not trust anything Michonne says. Seriously, you could like tell her anything, tell her the truth, tell her a lie. She still doesn't believe Michonne. And Norma ends up being a very weak villain. She is a basic evil community leader. She's another governor type of villain. She presents herself as nice, but really she's another antagonist. Her brother Randall is secretly looting, killing, and robbing a bunch of other communities and survivors, taking their stuff back to Norma's village. Norma basically keeps her hands clean because her brother does all the dirty work for her. She interrogates Michonne, Sam, and Sam's brother, Greg. Greg is accidentally killed, but one of the minions feels sympathetic towards Sam and Michonne and helps them escape. However, he set the entire town on fire, causing you to run away, where Randall kind of becomes the villain of the second episode. We don't see Norma again until episode 3, where Norma wants to bargain with Michonne. Norma takes Michonne's shipmates hostage. She took Pete, Sadiq, and everyone else in the sailor crew hostage, and is willing to exchange them in exchange for her brother Randall, who got captured. But everything goes to hell, as always in The Walking Dead, leading to a big epic shootout, where Norma and Michonne have a final fight, and Norma basically kind of gets defeated rather abruptly and easily. They try to make her a layered character, that she has a set of virtues and morals that she follows, but she's just another basic evil villain in The Walking Dead. Evil community leader, claims she's the good guy while doing bad things, and ultimately the most memorable part is her death scene. Norma has a big epic fight with Michonne. She gets surrounded by zombies, and your final choice is, your final choice for her is basically, Michonne, do you want to mercy kill her or let her get devoured by walkers? I usually pick let her get devoured because she was the one who started this entire war and ruined everything. Norma's a pretty flat villain, all things considered. She could have been interesting. They set her up like she was going to have a bigger story, but ended up another basic Walking Dead cannon fodder. Evil bad guy does bad things, doesn't think they're bad, tries to call you out on your evil when really she's a hypocrite, and the only satisfying part is her downfall, yet Norma, very weak antagonist. Almost a good character, but fell very short. Hey Kat, I made it, what I missed. We're on The Walking Dead Michonne now. Honestly got a lot of good villains out of the way. We got the Stranger, Carver, the St. John's, and the Walkers, of course, up top. Got Nate, one of the funny villains on Ace Savior. Got Vernon and the Bandits on Bandit, very interesting antagonist, but they didn't do too much with. Got Roman and Dee from 400 Days on Common Crook, very underdeveloped. Just wrapping up Norma now, who ended up kind of a disappointing antagonist. She's on Walkerbait, a very weak villain. And on Arvo, the worst ones are Troy and Arvo. Surprise, yeah, these two suck. Alright, I wanted to like Norma, but ended up not developing as a character. That's really it. See, we're doing Telltale game villains for The Walking Dead. Love the games and their variety of antagonists. I do too. We got honestly a lot more good on here than bad so far, but that's about to change once we get to Randall. I never felt like she was the villain. She just wanted her brother back in the supplies. She's mostly frustrated than anything. Which Walking Dead is better, the AMC show or the Telltale version? I might have to go with the Telltale version because the Commonwealth season was just god-awful. Yeah, I treated Clementine and the others as just out of spite. Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying Arvo wasn't unjustified there, but, I mean, guy, capping a little girl, you should have shot Kenny instead. That would have made me feel for him. Random fact, it takes less time to say The Walking Dead than TWD. Okay, so yeah, Norma, pretty weak villain. And speaking of weak villains, let's get to her brother, Randall. Yeah, Randall. Randall is basically Troy 2.0, and Randall also sucks. I'll put him at least above Troy because he had his moments where he could have been a good character, but ended up not being. Randall is Norma's psychotic, sadistic brother. Randall is basically a total thug, a one-note dickhead who likes hurting and killing people. Randall does the dirty work for Norma. He's honestly more so the real villain than his sister is. Randall is introduced in episode 1. Basically, he killed a bunch of people on the steamboat community so he could raid their supplies. However, Randall abducts Michonne and Sam back, and basically is the most one-note sadistic a-hole ever. He's kind of like Troy, and a lot of Jared from the Walking Dead TV show, where he basically says douchey things, antagonizes everyone, tries to hit Michonne's trauma button, brings up that, oh, everyone's gonna die, kind of a straw nihilist. He's always complaining that life is futile and only the strong survive. Yeah, basically, kind of the one-note evil douchebag. That is his entire character and why he's down low. I will say it is satisfying in Season 2 where Randall kind of becomes the main villain of this episode. After you escape the ship community, Randall decides to abandon the community to stalk Michonne. He takes a lot of their heavy hitters instead of saving his own town to try and kill Michonne and Sam. You race around, go up like this cool antenna and tower. I do love the tower level here. Randall's trying to snipe you out. He chases you, eventually finds Sam's house. He ends up killing Sam's dad, John Redcorn. Breaks into the house and leads to a pretty epic fight. The best part about Randall is that you basically abuse this guy. Michonne beats him, stabs him. You capture him by shoving his hands in a compressor, and basically you get to tighten it and crush his hands, beat him, make him bleed. Randall still tries to mouth off to Michonne even though he's lost and beaten. Brags that, oh, he killed Sam's dad and he's gonna kill the kids next. Basically, this guy is the punching bag, and very satisfyingly so. They kind of do this guy a bit better than Troy because you can give Randall instant karma, beat him down. It leads to basically his big Telltale choice where Michonne can potentially kill Randall. Norma calls you up, asks, oh, please spare my brother, I'll give you your crew in exchange for his life, but Michonne can potentially kill him. If you kill him, he comes back as a zombie, and you try to trick Norma if you put, like, the bag over his head. I usually keep him alive because it's funnier to beat him up. Yeah, Randall gets a lot of comeuppance, and that's the only reason why he wins a few points, but honestly, he's a one-note dick, and in the finale, once you finally make the deal, if you leave him alive, he decides to attack Michonne still. Yet you deliver him Norma alive and well, he's the one who helps instigate the war and makes it worse, and he just ends up shot by Sam. Yeah, all that build up to him, and he's just capped in the head. It's usually Sam or Michonne who kills him. Michonne can technically kill him twice, but there is not much to this character. He is basically a carbon copy of Troy, just this one-note dickhead with a hate boner for the main character, and exists for you to beat up. Speaking of which dog from the second and fourth season do you prefer? Oh, obviously the fourth season dog. The dog was actually a friend. Season 2 dog tries to kill Clementine. Randall is bad and sucks hard, but not as hard as that simp Sheldon from MLAATR, courtesy of Sarcastic Chorus. Yeah, Randall sucks. He's going on to Arvo. Easily the biggest one-note flat character of this game saga. He's terrible. Going on to Arvo. But we made it to our next game, The New Frontier, who has a much bigger variety of antagonists, but a lot of good and bad. Alright, so I think we should knock off the technical mastermind of the entire New Frontier, Joan. And Joan is another walker bait. I did not like this villainess. Joan is the true leader of the New Frontier. Joan is the quote-unquote benevolent leader of the kingdom known as Richmond. However, it turns out they're really the New Frontier. Joan is secretly in the shadows this psychotic governor-type dictator who is completely power-hungry and crazy. She's secretly hiring her goons to loot and kill other communities for their supplies. Joan actually does try to present herself as this caring, benevolent, nice old lady, but it turns out she's anything but. She is the true leader of the New Frontier. She has a council made up of Dr. Lingard and David down here, and Clint, who's not really a villain, but this lowly yes man. Basically, she pretends she's nice, tries to let Javier and friends into their community, but you learn she's actually the villain. And honestly, kind of one-dimensional too. Once she reveals how evil she is, basically she wears her evil on her sleeve. She's cackling evilly, rubbing her leadership in everyone's faces. The type of villain who's on a power trip. She's like, oh, I can do whatever I want. I rule this kingdom. I make the rules. I make the deals around here. And yeah, it kind of lessened her as a threat. The New Frontier could have been very interesting villains, but Joan ended up very weak, and once again is just another governor type of villain, which we've seen before with Norma and Carver. And we're doing this again, another corrupt community leader who is basically another governor wannabe. Yeah, Joan is honestly the type of Walking Dead villain a lot of fans, including myself, are getting sick of. There's not much depth to her. Believe it or not, there was a deleted idea that Eleanor was going to be revealed to be Joan's daughter, and that's why Eleanor betrays you, but they ended up scrapping it, giving Joan even less character. She's basically Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. Yeah, she is. That best describes her. Joan's like a complete hate-sink character, acting nice and friendly, but no, she's really a two-faced bitch. This evil, corrupt woman-child on a power trip. That's her whole thing. And they honestly give her kind of an unsatisfying comeuppance after exposing Joan, revealing the whole New Frontier conspiracy that everyone is evil. She's actually this terrible Governor 3.0. Joan takes David hostage. Out of spite, she kills either Trip or Ava. You have to choose who lives, only for her to kill the one you choose. Yeah, she basically is a woman child here, and David is still alive here. You get to bargain for his life, where she offers you a deal. You go free and fend for yourselves, and we let all this go, or you kill her. And I usually pick the choice to kill her, because there is no proper finale to her or Clint if you choose the deal. Yeah, basically, Joan or Clint dies here. Either David shoots out Clint, or you shoot out Joan, and it is kind of ironic that she gets the same death as Mariana, poetic justice, if you will. But yeah, her villainy basically ends abruptly. Joan is taken out in episode 4, and the zombies become the final boss. Yeah, it's kind of lame. Joanne didn't even get a proper character death. After how awesome Carver and the Stranger and heck, even Norma's deaths are, Joan just either gets shot in the head or she runs away and is never seen again. It's assumed that she was eaten by zombies when they poured in, but we don't see it happen off screen. Yeah, she's terrible. Very weak villainous. Going on to Walker bait. Speaking of which, next we'll knock off Max. This is Max, who is a common crook. Yeah, I liked him a bit more than Roman. This is Max, who is basically a knockoff Merle Dixon. They kind of made him look like Michael Rooker, honestly. Max is Jones' right-hand man. He's secretly in charge of the New Frontier bandits, doing whatever Joan orders. Max is actually introduced as the New Frontier general in the first episode. It seems like he's the villain in charge, but he's really a puppet to Joan. Sorry. Max is introduced, basically trying to ambush Javier. He fights you, accuses you of stealing supplies when really they're the ones stealing them, and he gets into a shootout, chases Javier to basically trip safe zone, but Badger ends up screwing everything up. Max kind of tries to present himself as this noble, rational minion, a punch clock villain, if you will, but it's kind of hard to buy that he has good in him. They want to make him like the morally gray henchman, but it kind of falls flat because he ends up following Jones' every orders. Max does let Javier and friends in because David Garcia steps in, reveals that he and Max are friends. It's teased that Max used to serve in the military with David because he mentions that they're both soldiers. It's eventually revealed that Max is more loyal to Joan than he is to his fellow soldier David, and you end up fighting him, or you can potentially kill him or take him as a witness to speak up against Joan. And yeah, he's kind of a bit villain. I wanted to like him, see more about him. I do like that if you let him live, he does betray Joan, he squeals on her, exposes her, but then we never see him ever again. Yeah, we never see him. If he doesn't die, he's locked up off screen, and that's the end of his story. Yeah, Merle Dixon, he ain't. Going on to C tier. Joan got what she deserved, but she's not good like Carver or the governor. Yeah, exactly. Max could have been an interesting character. They wanted to make him the Merle to Joan's governor, but ended up falling kind of flat as a character. Almost interesting. I do like that he did have some moments of humanity, some moments where he shows friendship with David, and ultimately, he does betray Joan if you keep him alive. He does squeal on her, so he did do good for that, but ended up kind of C tier. He ends up disappearing completely after because Telltale likely didn't want to program more for him. Alright, speaking of which, we'll also knock off Dr. Lingard, who is also going on to Bandit. Yeah, I'll put him under Vernon, because Vernon was at least interesting. This is Dr. Lingard. He's one of the inner circle of the New Frontier, but really nothing more than a figurehead. Dr. Lingard is best friends with David Garcia and Joan. He is the doctor of the community, played by Sasuke Uchiha himself, Yuri Lowenthal. And yes, I recognized him instantly because he sounds like an older Ben 10. Yeah, Yuri Lowenthal played this guy, and Dr. Lingard's like one of the more sympathetic villains. He's much more the tragic villain. He is a recovering drug addict who fell in with the New Frontier. He has medical expertise, which is why they keep him around. David Garcia became his best friends. It's implied he's gay and has feelings for David, but they never explore this too much. David helps Dr. Lingard overcome his drug addiction. He was like a former stoner, always shooting up, doing drugs, doing a lot of speed, basically. He recovers, becomes kind of an anti-villain, joins the inner circle of the New Frontier, up until Joan reveals her villainy. He is ultimately a coward. That's the only reason why he's on this tier list. He's a dirty coward. He sides with Joan because he's afraid of her. You know, she's a tyrant who could have him killed. He betrays David and ultimately chickens out of helping you. We see in the final episode, Dr. Lingard has fallen back to his old habits. He is back to doing drugs, is clinically depressed, and doesn't want to live anymore, where he offers to tell Clementine where AJ is. Alvin Jr. was taken by the New Frontier, and he knows where he is. He offers to tell Clementine if you mercy kill him. I usually mercy kill him. If you don't, he's still alive in the finale, trying to recover on his own, but it feels like a much more appropriate end to his character. Dr. Lingard can't take it anymore and asks you to help kill himself, and he gives you the information no matter what you do, kind of making the choice really not matter. But yeah, Dr. Lingard, if you do kill him, it feels more like a proper ending to his character arc. Honestly, I didn't think he was a bad character, but could have used a lot more spit and polish. He felt really undercooked. His story is interesting. You do like that he's actually a sympathetic villain in the New Frontier, but they end up abruptly killing him right when he got interesting. Gonna put him onto B tier. Drugs are bad, okay. Carver had potential to be the video game's equivalent of Negan, definitely has a mild threatening presence about him, but all in all, Negan is more better than Carver in my opinion. Well, Negan also had a lot more screen time. In the end of the final episode, I'm glad Lingard is now sober and stopped his old habits for real. Yeah, you could actually get him to sober up, but sadly it happens off screen. I'm glad Lingard is recovering, but he also is a dick and doesn't help Clementine out of spite. Yeah, this guy, basically kind of a coward, basically a selfish loser who's afraid to do the right thing. That's the only reason why he's a villain, but I'll put him on to B tier. He had potential. Okay, speaking of which, next character, Badger. Badger I'm gonna put onto Common Crook, and that's only for one reason. The best scene with him is his death scene. Badger, once again, is a cold, sociopathic, one-note dickhead. He's kind of like Troy and Randall. He's basically this sociopathic, bloodthirsty lunatic. He likes killing people, he likes attacking people, and he basically takes pride in killing David's daughter. He's the guy who snipes out Mariana. Mariana was one of the most likable characters in New Frontier, and this dick snipes her out and basically brags about it, gloats over it, and loves rubbing it in Javier's face. Kind of becomes Javier's archenemy among the New Frontier thugs. Basically not too much character going on. He is a one-note sociopath, likes hurting people, likes doing the dirty jobs. He is the bad angel on Max's shoulder. He's the one doing all the hard, evil tasks, while Max is a bit more reluctant. He is more so Jones' other right-hand man, or left-hand man, I should say. He screws up a deal trying to negotiate for Javier for revenge, ends up burning down an entire community to loot their supplies, only to show up in the most satisfying fight scene later. You ambush them, find out that Max and Badger are looting stuff and hiding it in this warehouse. You show up there, and leads to a final fight, leading to the best scene, his death scene, where Javier can go full-blown Negan on this guy's skull. This guy is basically bad-mouthing you, very pissed off, rubbing in your face that, oh, that little girl's never coming back, and Javier can take the baseball bat and you go Negan on this guy's skull. Yeah, he tries talking tough, tries bragging, oh, you're just like me. You beat him up brutally. He's suffering. He's dying, bleeding out. Ooh, taking it like a champ. Basically, suffers a much grosser version of Glenn's death. Yeah, that is basically the only reason why he gets points. He gets Glenn's death by Lucille. Did you already do Lily on the list? No, she's still on here. Lily's down here next to David. We were going in order. If you're wondering, I prefer to help him instead of killing him off. Would not be a good to the story. That's fine. That's fine. So you can also leave him to turn as a walker or a zombie. You can partially beat him up, leave him to bleed out, or you could bludgeon his whole skull until he's as dead as Glenn, or if Conrad's still alive, you can actually allow Conrad to get revenge for his dead girlfriend. This guy also killed Francine. She was a scout who served alongside Conrad, and if you successfully manage to keep Conrad alive in all this time, Conrad could actually get his revenge by capping him, which is also kind of poetic justice because he shot a little girl, then he gets shot in the head. All power, man. If that was any relation to me, Bed absolutely be fucking dead. Lily's not done yet, Chris. When Lingard was being suicidal after the walkers invaded the New Frontier, because it's best to help, because I know mine would come to his mind would come to the right place at the right time, especially if someone's gonna be in a bad time. Okay. Yeah, usually it kind of assists with Lingard's suicide because it did feel like a proper ending to him, and he does help Clementine in the end, going out on a peaceful death note. Anyways, yeah, Badger, he's a very terrible person, but man, is his death so satisfying. You get to basically play as a Negan, bludgeoning him to death. That is a highlight, and the only reason why he's not in F tier or Arvo tier. Common crook, but still very, very satisfying death scene. Alright, next we'll cap this off with one of the worst villains in the entire Walking Dead franchise, David Garcia. David Garcia is the friggin' worst. I'm putting him onto Arvo. I think I speak for everyone when I say, screw David Garcia, he is trash. I hate this guy. And the worst part is, Telltale makes it very vague if we're supposed to like him or not. David Garcia is the brother to Javier. Javier is the main protagonist of the New Frontier story. He's basically set up as this douchebag. He is a bully, a total abuser at home, a very annoying hypocrite, and a total man-baby who never grew up. David Garcia acts like he's the responsible older brother and Javier's the loser deadbeat brother. Then we get to the twist. It is actually the complete reverse. Javier is the good brother, and David is the bad brother. We spend so much time with this guy, and I swear, every scene with him makes you hate him. He's a total hypocrite, a total child. He throws a fit, constantly projects his problems onto others, especially his brother Javier, and the game actually wants you to feel sympathy for him. Yeah, sympathy for the guy who abandoned his family, who is not even in charge of the New Frontier, who likes to play soldier and act like he's in charge while criticizing Javier for dodging responsibility. You find out in flashbacks this guy was kind of a douche. He was a terrible husband to his wife, neglectful to his kids. He tried to raise Gabe to think like him. No word on how he treated Mariana. It seemed like Mariana got along with him fine, but basically kind of gets over the fact that she was shot dead. He wants to kill Badger for killing Mariana, but never does. Javier ultimately does. And basically, they try to make him like Shane Walsh from the TV show. Javier, Kate, and David are supposed to be like Rick, Lori, and Shane. Specifically, the love triangle and the inevitable fallout between them. However, whereas Shane was likable, sympathetic, and actually did have valid points to make, David does not. David is a complete idiot, a selfish dick. He makes every wrong decision he could. He claims to be in charge of the New Frontier. He's not. He's actually completely in the dark and is being used by Joan. He sides with Javier, and it becomes very clear he is not at all a good person, even before the zombies rose from the grave. He projects a lot of his issues onto Javier. He was a bad husband towards Kate, and Kate pretty much falls in love with Javi because Javier is a much better man. And basically, David is a big hypocritical crybaby who is breaking down and becoming a villain because he's realizing that he's the bad guy. He lost control of his life, he lost control of the plot, and ultimately turned his own family against him with his piss-poor judgment and decisions. Yeah, like I said, God feels extra here because Kate reminded me of a friend of mine. Marty from Back to the Future 3 puts it best with meme-wise, he's an asshole. Yes, he is. Meant to say heart, but I forgot. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, catch up on comments. Yeah, he sucks. Yeah, when I saw him for the first time, but dang, he's unlikable and a dick to Javi. And the part where he beats Javi is unjustified, and I want to fight him, but the good side of me doesn't want it. Yeah, basically, the game builds up this inevitable fallout between the brothers. Javier and David's brotherhood is falling apart, and we're kind of seeing the kind of man David really is deep down. Javier was a troubled loser at the start, but he's actually becoming a better man through his actions in the zombie apocalypse. David was kind of a bad egg from the start, and we're seeing basically all his nice moments and false nice guy facade crumble, seeing that he's really this selfish loser dickhead. He is completely ungrateful, he is completely violent, hostile, and makes a ton of bad decisions while acting like he's the hero. Eventually, the two brothers fight, and not gonna lie, I do pick the peaceful option because it's so funny. You make this promise to your dad that the dad asks as his dying wish that Javier takes care of David no matter what, never lash out at him, take care of David because you're the stronger brother. And I do kind of stick by it, but not for the morality purpose, because it's so funny when you say, I love you, man. And David completely throws a temper tantrum and freaks out. Why did you say that? Stop saying that. And he's beating up Javier, almost kills him, but is completely hesitant if you stick to your guns. Or you could beat him up, that is also satisfying, which is also very much a big sign that Javier was stronger than him all along. David throws a bitch fit and runs away, abducting his own son, leading to the final choice of the game. Do you save the innocent civilians being attacked by zombies in the New Frontier, or chase after David and Gabe? And every time I play this, I always pick fight the zombies and save New Frontier instead, because I cannot stand David Garcia and Gabe. I'm not gonna risk my life for this guy, he deserved to die. And basically, David dies by his own hand. You can save him if you choose to follow him, pick the right Telltale options to talk him down, but yeah, I never pick it because David Garcia sucks. He is ultimately the true villain of the New Frontier game, and basically, it is all built up to an inevitable fallout between your brother. David is not likable, and just when you think he's gonna have a nice, heartwarming moment, he does terrible, shitty things. He hits his son, is pissed off at his brother, even if Kate and Javier don't become a couple, and the part that made me guarantee my hate for him, he takes away Alvin Jr. Clementine stayed with the New Frontier, and David is the one who took Alvin Jr. away. Clementine stole medicine to treat Alvin Jr., where David wrote the kid off as a lost cause. You inject him with basically this vaccine, saving AJ's life, and David finds you, has the gall to say Clementine is a bad parent. Keep in mind this guy abandoned his family, says Clementine is a terrible mother, and he's the one who separates AJ and Clementine. Yep, they get separated all because of him, and this pretty much cemented my hate for him because all sympathy went out the window when he did this. And ultimately, he proves to be the twist villain of the game, where he and Javi have their fight, showing you that he is an immature man baby. Yeah, David sucks. He is bad. He is Arvo bad. Only reason why he's up high because he did have a flicker of hope you almost felt for him, but ended up in F tier. I agree, Kat. Thank you, Chris. Sorry, reading comments. Call me naive, but I prefer the part when Javier says I love you to David, because sometimes a sibling bond is more stronger than hate. Yeah, I see what they're going for, but the delivery was just too hilarious. It, I would definitely say, is the Walking Dead's version of the Batman versus Superman Martha scene. You get what they're going for, but the delivery is just so cartoonishly over the top. But since David's deadly sins are wrath and envy that makes him bad, yeah, David was pretty much envious of Javier, that's why he bullied him. He is bad, he is to blame, he hangs his head in shame. Yep. David sucks. Going on to Arvo. Only reason why he's above these other three is because they definitely tried to give him character. It just ended up a bad character. But we made it, folks, to the final season. Got our final 4 villains, appropriately for the 4th chapter of Clementine's arc. Getting some water because we have a lot to say. Alright, I think I'll bump off our first villain. Brendan. Or no, sorry, Marlon. This is Marlon, my mistake. Alright, Marlon, I'm gonna put onto a savior. This guy was honestly pretty interesting. This Kiefer Sutherland looking kid is actually the leader of a group of school survivors. Clementine joins up with another new group in the final season, this time comprised of kids. A bunch of teenagers to completely little kids are all held up in this boarding school for troubled youths, and their leader is Marlon, this guy here. Marlon is the leader because he's the oldest, and he seems to present himself as a nice guy. Until you find out he's the twist villain. Marlon is reasonable at first, helping Clementine and AJ out of the goodness of his heart, bonding with you, showing nice friendship moments, introducing you to his fellow survivors, making new friends. They try to trick you into thinking Violet and this jerk guy might be the villains, but it turns out Marlon is actually secretly evil. He's sizing up Clementine and AJ because he plans to trade them to the villains of the game. The main villains, a group called the Delta. Marlon dealt with the Delta before. They want to force the kids to become child soldiers in their group, indoctrinating and brainwashing them. Marlon and his group encountered them before, and in sheer fear and desperation, Marlon sold Minerva and her sister Sophie over to the Delta. He and his friend Brody did it in secrecy and kept quiet about it for years, up until the Delta return. The Delta are targeting the school once more, and Marlon believes that he can get them off their backs if he trades them Clementine and Alvin Jr. He's secretly using them all along. Brody, his friend, actually feels guilty for what they did, is showing regret. You encounter one of the Delta leaders early in the game, and heavily implied Brody knows who it was. You talk to Brody and Marlon in the basement, confront them, and Marlon reveals that he's the villain when he snaps in primal rage and accidentally kills Brody. Brody gets walloped in the head and she dies in a similar vein to Dee. She suffers a head wound, falls over dead, and Marlon seals you in the basement, planning to sell you to the Delta. Brody confesses the truth that they made a deal. The Delta are this group who took their friends away. They lied about their fate because they wanted to reaffirm with the other group that they were safe. They thought they'd be safe, they thought they'd be hidden, but like everything in The Walking Dead, their past came back to haunt them. Marlon tries to trick the others into making them think Clementine and AJ are evil, and we kind of see Marlon for who he truly is, this very scared, very fearful kid. He is not the hardened leader. He is being strangled by the chains of command. He doesn't really know what to do. He is being strangled by his own responsibility and fear. He is afraid of the Delta, he is losing control, and he's basically lashing out, trying to reassert his control, trying to pretend everything's alright. You call him out, you can potentially talk him down, but then AJ snipes him in the back. Yeah, Alvin Jr. gets his first human kill, shooting Marlon in the back of the head, and he dies, leading to a fallout in the next episode. At first, I like Marlon because of his reasonable nature, but his true colors made me take it back when I think of him, and I feel sorry for Brody. Yeah, poor Brody, she did not deserve that, and even worse, we find out the blunt trauma didn't damage her brain enough. Brody ends up dying from being whacked in the head, but haha, she became a zombie and jump scares Clementine. Brody is kind of a mini-boss when she resurrects as a walker. It's a pretty intense and scary scene, not gonna lie, I do like it. Marlon honestly is kind of sympathetic, but also totally villainous. He was planning to sell Clementine and AJ out, and you see him that he is basically a weak leader, which does make you feel sorry for him, but ultimately he was still evil because he did successfully trade 2 kids over to the Delta prior. You try to reason with him. He admits that he's a bad leader, is about to step down until he's shot dead. But honestly, I thought he was a pretty fascinating character. I will put him onto A tier because he is like one of the legit most interesting characters we've had in a long while in these games. Rocking a mullet nonetheless, like Mr. Universe from Steven Universe. Fun fact, I used to have a mullet myself when I was growing up in the 2000s and 2010s. Hey, you did it before Eugene brought it back. Great tier list. Thank you, Abel Tastefay. He's bad. Alright, read that one. AJ is a real little menace at times, especially in the third and fourth season. Yeah, in the third season, he has the excuse of being a baby. Fourth season, not so much. Alvin Jr. is honestly borderline a villain. He is walking a very thin line between good and evil, and Clementine is basically trying to raise him just like how Lee raised her. But Clementine started out good and was a lot older than AJ. AJ has reached Clementine's age, and growing up in the zombie world has definitely made him more hardened compared to other children. But anyways, yeah, Marlon, pretty interesting character. I'll put him onto A tier. R.I.P. Brody. Alright, next we'll get one of the weaker villains out of the way, Abel. Abel, sad to say this, I'm going to put onto Common Crook. This is Abel. You're tricked into believing he's the main villain because he shows up earlier shows up before the actual Delta leader. Abel is a worker for the Delta. He shows up, acts mysterious and creepy. He literally makes cigarettes from Bible pages just to show you he's evil. Pretty silly, honestly, even for The Walking Dead. But yeah, Abel shows up and he tries to abduct Clementine and AJ. He hints that he was gonna rob them, but as we find out later in the game, the Delta are after something more than food and weapons. Abel acts sinister and creepy, foreshadows that you can't trust the school children, and basically you have the option of fighting back against him or running away. I usually pick fighting back. I push like Abel out the window into the walkers and they take him away. Then he shows up like missing an arm. However, no matter what choices you make, Abel survives. It's left vague if he survived. He shows up with the real leader, Lily, and reveals that he's actually her right-hand man. Abel is basically another minion character. They give him a few more layers compared to Troy and Randall, so he does win some points for that. Abel was kind of sympathetic at the start. He reveals that, he used to be a good person until the apocalypse happened. Now he embraces being evil. He reveals the Delta are taking children because they're at war with this eviler group than them. We never find out who this group is. The Delta is waging war with some dangerous group. A lot of people theorize it might be the Saviors, the Whisperers, or even the Commonwealth, but we never actually meet them because the Delta are the primary threat. Abel basically is similar to Randall, kind of another punching bag character. He tries to corrupt Clementine and AJ, tries to kill children basically, only to hilariously get his ass kicked by little children. It's kind of funny, you beat him up, he takes a lot of abuse, and eventually he's captured, thrown into an exact same situation as Randall. He's taken, interrogated, and depending on your interactions with him, you can either reveal a sympathetic side to him and give him a mercy kill, or you can treat him like crap and he goes out like a wuss. If Alvin and Rebecca were still alive, they would be very proud of Clementine and AJ are all grown up. Yeah, they definitely would be. Especially if you make the right choices. But yeah, Abel, he's fine. Honestly, I don't have too much praise to say. He's beaten up a lot. He's interrogated. Basically another psychotic loser who likes harming children because they're weaker. He does reveal he does have layers to him, which is why he wins some points above Troy and Randall especially. But ultimately, he dies kind of pathetically, reveals that, he didn't want to be evil, he surrenders information to you, and you eventually put him out of his misery. That's kind of the end of his story. He's set up like he was going to be a big villain, but nope, it's really our twist villains down here, Lily and Minerva. We'll get to them after, but yeah, Abel, basically a common crook. Alright, now we made it to our final two villains, Lily and Minerva. We'll do Lily first. Lily comes back after not being seen since Season 1. In Season 1, Lily was one of the original survivors of Lee Everett and Kenny's group. Lily was initially the leader of her group of survivors until she slowly lost control of her power. She was honestly a pretty cool character in the first season, but she doesn't become a villain until episode 3, where she has a complete psychotic breakdown, realizes there's a traitor in her midst, and has gone completely unhinged from paranoia and insecurity. And she eventually kills Carly and or Doug. Carly or Doug jump in front of a bullet that was meant for Ben, and she ends up killing one of your group members, being exiled in the aftermath. We never see her ever again. She's last seen fleeing either in the RV or being chased by zombies, only for her to show up in the final season. Finally, years later, Lily shows up and reveals that she's a villain now. Lily is a member of the Delta. She's the one abducting children and indoctrinating them into becoming child soldiers. Lily meets up with Clementine again, and not gonna lie, as great as it is seeing Lily come back, I do not feel like she had that tight a bond with Clementine compared to others. When Kenny came back, it was a great moment. Kenny was around all first season and actually did interact with Clementine. Lily pretty much barely interacted with Clementine. I think episode 2 was the only time we see them talk together. I wish they can do a season 5 of Telltale video games to show future AJ being the teen or early 20s and Clementine in her 30s or 40s. That would be interesting, but yeah. But yeah, we probably won't, because I think Clementine's story ends on a satisfying note. Okay, so I really wanted to like Lily, but she is kind of off-screen for a lot of segments in the final season, and ultimately I do think her character could have been done a bit better. I might have to put her onto Bandits. Yeah, I'll put her above Vernon at least. Yeah, I'm sorry folks, but Lily to me is kind of a B-tier villain, honestly, in these games. It was interesting seeing her come back. I love her interactions with Clementine, but ultimately I do think she was kind of a basic character again. Basically, she became influenced by Larry. Larry's teachings have shaped her into the worst way possible. Sorry, I just need a little water. Yes, Lily, love her character. She was a good, mild antagonist for the final season, yeah. So, a lot of Larry's influence definitely rubbed off on her. Lily is a bad parent to her child recruits. We find out she's training these soldiers to help fight their war for them, ironically making more bad decisions because fighting the children and trying to take the school has only costed them more resources and troops. Lily takes as many children as she can, re-meets Clementine, tries to convince Clementine to become her protege. It almost works, but I don't feel like Lily and Clementine really had that much of a connection. Yeah, Clementine was kind of just a girl Lily babysat. They had some interactions. What we needed was a flashback. We needed a flashback showing Lily and Clementine as friends, and that probably would have pushed her up to S tier for me. I needed to see basically them, ironically, as best friends before these scenes of them being bitter enemies. It would have worked, but yeah, Lily comes back. Spam. Yeah, I know, Lily is pretty awesome. I do love Lily as a character. As a character, she would make it up higher, but as a villain, I'm gonna put her onto B tier because she is kind of off-screen for long amounts of time. Basically, you try to take back the children she abducts. Lily captures Clementine, interrogates them, reveals that she's kind of become a monster now. She is abusing the kids. She brokered in Minerva down here, forced her to comply with her, and basically turned her into a monster like her. Actually justifies Larry's bad parenting because it made her stronger, made her learn lessons, when really all she is an insane, scared little girl trying to play big bad villain. But of course, Lily severely underestimates the children. They completely wreck their base, they fight, and it leads to potentially Lily's final moments where you have the telltale choice of telling Alvin Jr. to shoot Lily or spare her. Spoilers, if you spare her, she ends up killing Johnny Young Bosch. Yeah, she kills your Whisper friend, completely ungrateful bitch, but the boat completely explodes no matter what. Lily can either get away, she can actually apologize, call her out, whatever, make a final goodbye message with her. Lily does show regret if you were once friends with her. Or basically Lily can end up capped off and dead. Lily gets a ironic death if you choose to kill her. She shot Carly or Doug in the head, then she ends up shot in the head, which is a pretty fitting conclusion. But I will say I was interested in her as a villain. She could have been a very fascinating antagonist had we developed her a bit more. I wanted to see more interactions between her and Clementine, but from what we get, she's kind of just another evil leader type of character. The only thing that gives her points is that she had a connection with you at first from the first season. But Lily, I think she's an alright antagonist, mildly interesting, but she is outshined by our last villain. Speaking of which, yeah, I just got done eating stir-fried ramen noodle cup, very delicious. Ooh, very. Yeah, I like Lily as a character. As a character, she would make it up higher. As a villain, she's alright, going on to B tier. But let's end this on a high note with our last villainess, Minerva. Minerva going on to A tier. Yeah, I'll put her above Marlon, but under Nate, because Nate was just funnier. Yep, we made it to the end. Minerva is an ace savior. So, after faking us out with both Abel and later Lily, we meet the true final boss of this game, Minerva. Minerva is the evil Clementine. Yep, we had evil version of Lee, evil version of Kenny, now evil version of Clementine. Minerva was once a sweet, shy, innocent kid who was the heart of her team. She was a compassionate, nice girl, up until Marlon sold her to the Delta, where the good Minnie is dead. Now we get evil Minnie. Minerva became a cold, sociopathic loner. She is a child soldier, completely brainwashed by the Delta. She gave in and went so far as to kill her own sister for trying to escape. Minnie was indoctrinated. You almost feel sorry for her up until she kind of reveals how far gone she is. Minerva is Clementine if she was raised by villains. That is her whole story. If Clementine was founded and taught by the villains instead of somebody good like Lee or Kenny, and Minerva basically became a monster, especially so in the finale. Minerva acts like she's an anti-hero at first. She is found and discovered by her fellow kid heroes. She pretends that she can be an inside mole for you, only to completely betray you. Jeremy Lay voices her and honestly does pretty well. You do hear a bit of Lucy Hartfilia in her voice, particularly when she screams out loud, but yeah. Minerva basically lost her mind, gave into evil, and is completely indoctrinated. She murdered her own sister, betrayed her friends, and potentially helps torture either Violet or Lewis. Minerva basically becomes Clementine's archenemy. All throughout the game, she doesn't like Clem. She thinks Clem has turned her friends against her, not realizing that she has kind of done that herself. And basically when the Delta falls apart, she completely becomes bitter towards Clementine and wants to kill her and all her former friends. Minnie gets bitten by a walker, gets like a two-face on half of her, but it doesn't kill her instantly. We're led to believe she's dead, only for her to show up, revealing that she's become a psychotic horror monster. Minnie wants to kill Clementine and her friends, even her own brother Ten, luring in a horde of zombies following her, where she goes out in a final blaze of glory trying to kill everyone with her. And yeah, she's kind of the final boss of the entire Telltale saga. She fights Clementine, tries to kill her with guns and a literal axe, and eventually gets her karma where she's pushed into her own zombie horde, where she's devoured by her own minions. Though, depending on your choices, she does go out taking out at least one of the survivors. You have, of course, a sadistic Telltale choice of save her little brother Ten, or save Lewis or Violet. Whoever you fail to save gets devoured by zombies with her, and Yeah, it is honestly the hardest choice because you got to know the kid heroes very well. Violet and Lewis are very likable and potentially are your love interest, and 10 is a lot more sympathetic, but a lot of people hated him at this moment because 10 is mentally challenged and believes his sister is still good and tries to save her, walking willingly into the zombie horde. Yeah, pretty dumbass decision, but if you do save 10, he does reveal that he wants to get better and is being taught by AJ to become a stronger survivor. But yeah, Minnie ends up going crazy, has a really epic final fight with Clementine, almost kills her. She does wound Clementine's leg, but Minnie gets her just desserts when she's devoured by the Horde. And the reason why she wins a lot more points is, one, her boss fight is pretty epic. I do like that she's an evil Clementine, but her actions do cost Clementine a leg. They try to fake us out. They do trick you into believing Clementine is gonna die, her leg is too wounded, and she ends up getting bit by a walker, making you think Clementine is gonna end up in the same boat as Lee, and it's all thanks to this bitch, pretty much. But don't worry, folks, Clementine survives. They do fake you out. It turns out Alvin Jr. finally masters what you've been teaching him and saves his sister slash mother figure. He drags Clementine into a barn. You have a Dawn of the Dead style final fight where he manages to amputate Clementine's leg where she becomes female Herschel. Yeah, we see she's alive. She's walking on stilts. Hopefully she'll get a leg replacement like Herschel did, but yeah, Clementine is alive thanks to Alvin Jr., but Minerva's influence definitely impacted this crew. One of the survivors you were friends with will die by her hands, but Minerva honestly is a pretty underrated villain. I do like her. I wish she got a little more development and we got to see what she was like before she became evil villain Minnie, but yeah, going on to a survivor. And she does this speech like Lee. Yeah, she did. I would go with Save Violet. I would go with Save Lewis because I found out that he gets his tongue cut off if you don't save him. I would go with Save Violet. A lot of people love Violet. Though I do like Lewis. Lewis is very charming too. I thought he was a much better love interest than Gabe was. But yeah, The Walking Dead ends on a high note, and I do love that Clementine's final villain is a dark reflection of herself. Minerva is an ace savior. Could have used a little more push, but yeah, I do think she's a definitely decent antagonist. But we did it! We completed the Telltale tier list, and honestly had a lot more good than bad, which does surprise me. Yep, here's my ranking. Try to see it in full. Take one last snapshot if you can't see it. I'll go over it one last time for any of you late birds, or for those of you who skip click to see the ranking in full all the way at the end. Yeah, Clementine does a speech like Lee. That was very sad, very depressing. Yeah, I know a lot of people, including myself, almost fell for it, like, OMG, are they really gonna kill off Clementine? I played through because I did hold on to hope that no, they wouldn't. Clementine is just way too popular, especially because The Walking Dead got backlash for killing off Carl on the TV show. Yeah, remember when that happened, fans? One of the worst moments of the series, they killed off Carl because Chandler Riggs wanted to go to college. Even The Walking Dead wasn't a void of Power Ranger semantics in the back. Okay, but let's go over this last in full. Worst villain ever, Arvo. Yeah, really any surprise, Arvo sucks. Troy, Randall, these two guys suck for the same reason, one note dickheads. And David Garcia, easily the worst character in the entire Walking Dead franchise. I respect that they tried, but it wasn't good enough. These four, all the worst villains of the Telltale saga. These four guys, all of them suck. One note, terrible, terribly written, and unsympathetic. Next in Walker Bait, ironically the two characters the most alike, Joan and Norma, very underdeveloped, not very entertaining villains, honestly pretty basic, and once again, the infamous Governor knockoffs. They were definitely weak antagonists. Could have been great, but ended up falling short. Bye for now. Until next time, Kat. Bye, Chris. Well, this was fun, Kat. Sorry that I missed half of the tier list. I was busy cooking the ramen noodle cup. That's fine. Next in Common Crook are below average characters. D, Roman, Abel, Badger, and Max. Yeah, these ones, they're barely passable. Could have amounted to something interesting, but ended up falling really short, had a lack of screen time. Badger's highlight is his death scene, which should tell you everything about how well he was written. But yeah, pretty underdeveloped characters. Not bad, but very common. Next, in Bandits. The Bandits, yeah, interesting mini-bosses. I definitely felt entertained by them. Dr. Lingard, almost loved this character, but I felt he was really undercooked. I do like his sad story. You do feel sympathy for him, but ended up kind of a B-tier villain. Vernon, honestly a pretty nice surprise he was a villain, but he didn't make it high because he was a good guy at first. Basically, the big twist is that he was a villain. Fine, but I'm gonna put him onto B tier. And Lily. I do like Lily. She was a mildly interesting antagonist, but I wanted so much more with her. I felt like she had a lack of screen time in the final season, which sucks because I was looking forward to her return, but yeah, she's definitely a B tier antagonist. Not bad, but pretty alright. Then, Ace Savior. Who are our A Squad villains? Marlin, very interesting twist villain. Minerva, love that she's a evil Clementine, that won her a lot of points. And Nate, he's just a plain darkly hilarious antagonist. All these guys, pretty ace characters. Like them, could have used a bit more, but honestly, they were definitely serviceable and great villains. But who are our top dogs, the best villains in Hello, Governor? The Walkers. Yeah, are any of you really shocked? Of course, the zombies are the coolest part of a zombie horror story. The St. Johns, yep, really kick-ass villains. I enjoyed them immensely. Love their writing, love their dynamic, and their episode is still one of my favorites. Carver. Yeah, Michael Madison does it again. Plays this deliciously evil, hammy villain. Definitely a fun, love-to-hate antagonist, and he is very scary. But number one, all this time later, is the Stranger. Yep, like him, like the writing, like the twist behind him, like that he's not your usual Walking Dead villain. That just made him all the more memorable. The Stranger is definitely one of the most interesting antagonists, and to this day, I do think he is the best part of Lee Everett's story. He is definitely my favorite Telltale TWD villain. So got that, the Stranger's number one, and dead last is Arvo. Yeah, screw Arvo. But yeah, that completes our tier list. Thank you all for watching. I'll set you guys free after wrapping up. I do have a few teases. Currently, my new video, I'm working on a top 10. I do have another one in store for you. That's most likely going to be the next big project if you watch my regular video content. Got a top 10 list in the making, and it is tied to R.L. Stine saga. Then, for tier lists, I do want to do a Power Rangers idea I have in the works. Might do a Scooby-Doo project, but we also have Poison Ivy in the making. I should really get to Poison Ivy, but I gotta watch more of her media portrayals. But yeah, Poison Ivy might be the next tier list, or a Power Rangers featured tier list. We'll see when we get there. I could surprise you with something completely random like this. But thank you all for watching. I'm glad you enjoy these videos. So let's get to wrapping up, and I'll set you guys free. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I wish you all a good game. And we're walkers, and we're walkers.